Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next installment of the Poke the Bear vlog. I'm joined by a fantastic speaker and author all the way from Atlanta, Georgia today. So can you please say hello to John Allen Turner?
Are they saying hello to me now, or am I saying hello to them?
That's just the video, right? We're just setting it up. So John, so a week ago, John and I were in Melbourne together, and we were really exploring kind of big organisation creativity and innovation and what people do, and I guess as part of that, there's something I want to explore in this blog. But before we do, John, do you just want to give people a bit of a background as to what you've done in the past and where you are at the moment, and then we'll explore this theme.
Sure. Well, I live, like you said, in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and I help leaders lead better. I've worked with big organizations like Pfizer and State Farm in the United States Army and Columbia Sportswear. I've also worked with a lot of small organizations, nonprofit, small mom and pop groups, and I do a lot of individual one-on-one coaching with people who are in positions of leadership who oftentimes get in a little bit over their head and are swimming around trying to figure out how to lead a large organization when they haven't had that kind of experience.
Cool. So I guess, where this comes together is, my focus is helping people think more creatively and act a bit differently and a bit innovatively. And one of the things I come up against constantly with organizations is, they know they need to innovate and they know they need to change, but they're so locked into, I guess, their processes and their structure. And something, in a conversation that we were having, John, that came up was that, well, I'll let you explain it rather, because you do it justice rather than myself, but then we'll explore that for about 10 minutes.
Well, thank you. Large organizations and organizations that have been in existence for a long time oftentimes struggle with differentiating between what we do versus the way we do it. And the easy way to think about that is they conflate mission and strategy. And what I like to tell people is you date the strategy, but you marry the mission. So your mission isn't going to change, but the way you accomplish it is going to be necessarily open to innovation based on where you are and when you are. So the way you accomplish a specific thing in a major urban setting is going to be different from the way you try to accomplish the same thing in a more rural setting. Or if you're doing business in Asia, where the social mores are just completely different from the way they are in Europe, the way you accomplish things is going to be different. So your mission may be the same, but your strategy needs to be flexible.
Cool. And so really what you said as we were discussing this was that, as these organizations continue, they get so embedded with the day-to-day and the strategy that really their mission just becomes the strategy.
Right. And that can be very position dependent or domain dependent. So it's critically important that senior leadership defines success for everyone in the organization, because otherwise your department heads, who are leaders of their own, will end up creating a definition of success for themselves that may or may not be in alignment with what the senior leadership wants. So for example, if you've got a safety inspector, success for him or her may be, we made it 100 days without incident. But your productivity manager has a different definition. We manufactured 1,000 widgets this week. So you may have one person who thinks this was a very successful week, and the other person who thinks this week was an utter disaster. And it's vitally important for the senior leaders to define success for the whole organization. Otherwise, you've got this little person here who thinks their job is just to spin around like this so that this part can spin like that, so that that can go here and the arms of the whole thing can turn. You want to make sure that they don't lose sight of what success, organizational success, looks like.
So Really, really strong point, I think, as people go through that. And I guess one of the things you mentioned before is that you'd worked with large organizations like Pfizer, right? So
Yeah.
heavily, based in research and development, very intelligent academic people that work there as well. So what have you seen around how an organization balances probably something that, innovation and research and development and creativity is in their blood, but also trying to balance the business as usual. So the strategy aspects around trying to get to the point of, returns for shareholders and, and those competing requirements that you mentioned before.
Sure. And in organizations like that, and I would actually say the publishing industry here in the US is similar in this respect. You've got half of the organization that is committed to new products and innovative ideas and new thoughts and that doing that deep research that's going to make the world a better place. And then you've got another half of the organization that is committed to making money at all costs. And it's vitally important that an organization like that remember what their core values are so that they don't allow the tail to wag the dog. You never want sales to drive content in an organization like that, because at the end of the day, while the shareholders may disagree with me on this, Pfizer was not created to make money. Pfizer was created to research and manufacture drugs that made people's lives better. And if they're not accomplishing that, they may be making lots of money, but if they're not accomplishing that, then they're not being true to who they really are, or at least not true to who they say they are. And so when I come into an organization like that, I try really hard not to impose my definition of integrity on them. I try to ask them for what their core values are and then challenge them to live those out with higher levels of integrity.
So you just captured something there at the end where, you want to explore the values and integrity. Do you find that the larger an organization is, the more diluted those, the mission statement, the values, the integrity actually are as they go through the organization? Because I think from a board aspect, it's really simple to have a bunch of people sitting in a room and they go, yes, we're living and breathing our values. But then it goes through the exec team and then it just gets diluted. It's like the old game that we used to play as kids of Chinese whispers,
Sure, you whisper to the person next to you and it comes, by the time it comes around, it's completely distorted.
Yeah, and I think that, the standard approach is we will put big posters on the wall, we'll put screensavers on the back of people's, laptops around what our values are. But when you challenge people, they can't actually remember that. So have you seen anything to actually counteract that?
Yes. I think it's critically important for organizations to periodically revisit their core values and make sure they are still their core values. I know for me personally, I'll be 50 here in a couple of months, and the core values I have today, some of them are the same as when I was 25, but a lot of them have changed. Just over the course, I'm in a different place in life. And so an organization, like an individual, needs to go back and recodify their values periodically. And I think the best way to do that is not like have the leader go off to a mountaintop and receive the tablets from on high and come and deliver it to the people, but include the people in the codification of your core values. So you have these sessions where everybody is buying in, everybody feels like they have say in clarifying and defining what those core values are, and they're more likely to live them out when they have had a stake in that, rather than if they were handed core values and say, live by these.
Yeah, okay. So I love the aspect of, almost like that gift of the values that you go through. And I really like the analogy as well that you mentioned that, the values that you hold as a 25-year-old are different to those as a almost 50-year-old. So I'm a couple of years behind you, so that's okay. Not too many, but that's okay.
And they say it's not the age, it's the mileage, right?
So yeah, that's it. Yeah, and the mindset, right? It's
there you go.
As my kids would constantly tell me, I think that, all kids, as they become teenagers, don't like their parents, but it's the I like to try and push the boundaries around fun and play and all those kind of things. But I think
What?
actually
That doesn't sound like the Andy that I hung out with in Melbourne.
and look, that's an interesting point. I think is leaders that you work with in large organizations is there's almost a blanket that comes up around them, and a persona that they need to project to other people, because a lot of the time their technical skills, their business skills have got them to where they are. So it's almost like the leader as manager type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're seeing this fundamental shift at the moment to a term that I hate, which is soft skills, because I think they're the critical skills of the future for the businesses of the future. They're the leadership, the creative thinking, the problem solving. How much do you think that gift of values and the integrity and those kind of things would have a deeper impact if almost the vulnerability of the senior leaders in an organization actually played out day to day?
Well, I think some of it is just ego getting in the way, and Ray Dalio is one of my favorite, just the way he's codified his leadership principles. And Ray Dalio is insistent that the best idea win, regardless of where the idea comes from. So being in an idea meritocracy allows him to be humble and be vulnerable and to ask those questions, because he's managed to remove as much ego as possible from the equation, and he doesn't care who gets the credit as long as the idea surfaces and makes their organization run better. So I think as leaders, it's incumbent upon us to tamp our egos down and say, I'm here to serve this organization and to serve the people in this organization rather than have them serve me. So, Greenleaf's ideas around servant leadership, everybody has kind of talked about that ad nauseum, but very few people really take that to the degree and the extent that someone like Ray Dalio has taken that. And I think for leaders to say, okay, it's important to be competent. That's no doubt. And if we weren't competent, we wouldn't be hired in the position that we're in. But it's also important to have character, a high level of character. And then the third C I would add to that is to be able to create a culture. And in the hiring practices, if we weren't just hiring for competency, if we were also hiring for character and hiring people who fit the culture of the organization we're trying to establish, then we would have a lot less turnover. We would be able to have a higher degree of employee retention. And again, there would be less drifting into misalignment when it comes to what our core values are as an organization.
Fantastic. So in keeping with the Poke the Bear vlog rules, I think we've done 15 minutes, because I know, a lot of people don't have the attention span or the time to do an hour. So is
that a little projection on your part, Andy?
What is it? I am not my own customer. Is that I love the fact that we've got, some age references in there. I love the fact that you snuck a beer in there as well. I think, those.
It's really early over there, right? It's not even 9 a.m.
It's almost 9 o'clock. I'm about to go to the airport and get on a plane to go to the other side of the country. So you've probably
it's 9 p.m. where I am. So it's beer o'clock for sure.
It is.
It's been hot, super, super warm over here. It was like 36, 37 degrees today.
Yeah. Okay. And that's it. And so just for the viewers, let's finish on what type of beer is it that you are drinking?
I am drinking a Kona Big Wave Golden Ale. Kona is a brewery out of Hawaii, and this is just a great summertime. I've been sitting out by the pool, kind of easy drinking beer.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, if it's been hot and you've been traveling and you've been sharing your wisdom, you deserve it. So thank you very much for your time, and no doubt we'll catch up again in the future. Thanks, John.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Andy.